Welcome to the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast.
What a humdinger of a show!
Jumpy, beep, beep!
Booty-O's! They make sure you ain't booty!
I got the gift of gab and the gift of jab, and I'll put that lazy eye right back to work.
I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a good guy. I'm the guy.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. The wrestling podcast will review Monday Night Raw and give all of you beautiful people the wrestling news of the week. Of course, myself being the host of the show, the person you're listening to right now is in a one-man commentary booth here for this particular episode. My name is Turbo Tony. I'm alone. I have no one here beside me to tell me that I can't sing to you lovely people. I hope you're all having a great week. No Matt this week here with me. He was unfortunately unable to take part in this week's episode. So it was just me, an intimate, let's say, dinner for two between you, the fans, and myself, so you can, get a bit more intimate with me and let's just say snuggle up to Turbo Tony. Just get a little bit warmer. Invade my personal space, if you will, just for 1 week only. Okay. Of course, if you guys would like to interact with us, the main way of doing so is our Facebook page, facebook.com/Let's Talk Wrestling Podcast. You can also send us a tweet to our Twitter handle, which of course is @TalkWrestlePod. It just doesn't feel the same without Matt here and me doing the usual stuff, but we'll be back to that, of course. And if you want to send us any private messages or audio questions, you can send that to Let's Talk Wrestling Podcast @gmail.com. All of that fantastic stuff is in the graphics there behind you in the description, and there's blah, 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 plenty of ways. Sorry, I'm tripping over myself already, people. There's plenty of ways to get in contact with us and send us your messages. And obviously in the comment section below, plenty of ways to do that. So what can you expect here on this week's show? Well, Matt missed a packed show. That's all I'm going to say right now. The amount of notes I've done for this week is absolutely mental. But so we've got a lot of news to get into, a lot of interesting news. We've also got the fan feedback. We're going to be reviewing WWE No Mercy, which aired over the last weekend, which I watched, of course. To be reviewing Monday Night Raw, which I've returned to watching this week after the 1 week of me deciding I would do an article instead. If you'd like to watch that, you can go back last week if you didn't already catch that. Well, before we get into that, a little bit of procrastination. First of all, let's talk about the fact that I'm not used to doing solo episodes. I'm just going to put that out there right now. I think in total, since the podcast began, I've probably done, let's look at maybe 3 or 4 solo episodes. I've done a couple with other people, right? I did one with my wife, if people can remember. So I'm not particularly used to doing the solo episodes. It's really useful to have Matt there to bounce off of, even I think if you go back, as the host of the show, a lot of talking just in general for the show, but it's nice to have the Matt there that you can bounce off. He'll catch a lot of things that I normally don't catch and provide a lot of humorous moments. And I hope that I can fill that in for you there this week anyway, just on my lonesome. And if not, then I apologize, but hopefully it'll be good, just as good as usual. That's what I'm gunning for here. A bit of procrastination then. So the big news that was going around this week is the Donald Trump quotes. Now, obviously, the presidential debate aired Sunday, just gone. Not the Sunday this gets released, of course. But that's we'll talk a little bit more about how that affected WWE No Mercy as we get there. But it all centered around the facts that some of the comments from Donald Trump had come out to the public, and excuse my language, even though I swear like a sailor on this show. Everyone knows that by now. Trump came out and basically said the now infamous line, if you basically want a woman, grab her by the pussy. It's quite a line, that's there's no real way to get around that. And even his vice president was like, basically saying, I don't agree with this, and it was the wrong thing to say. And Trump was coming out and saying, somewhat the same things, but you tried to turn it on Hillary in the presidential debate. I just think that all jokes aside, because we've talked a little bit more about the political situation over in America. I honestly don't think that Trump will get elected. I think eventually he's one of those people that almost like a candle, that's not right. Like a firework. He's going to shoot right up there faster than anyone else. And that's what he's done with this election. But sooner or later he's going to sizzle out, and people are going to start seeing it for what it really is, which is pretty on the outside, but not really much going on. What I think, unfortunately, the whole Trump situation has done with this whole election campaign is that it's shown politics for what it can be for its very worst. I haven't heard barely anything about actual policy being spoken about in these debates. It's all about who has the biggest scandals, which, to be honest, is quite a depressing turnout with these elections. That's just the bottom line of it. It's just a bit sad that it's come to that. It doesn't seem to be who's best for the job. It seems to be who can throw the most mud and see if it sticks. And I know this isn't the first time this has happened, but it's most recent, and it is worrying, shall we say, on both sides of the fence. Obviously, I'm not American, I don't get a vote, and unless Trump decides he wants to get a little bit ballsy and start throwing his weight around, if he does get elected, it won't really bother me what happens on that side, but still, it's interesting nonetheless. Another thing to have a look at this week, the Star Wars Rogue One trailer. Now, I know we've spoken about this a little bit before on the podcast. I'm not like a massive Star Wars nut, not by any means. I'm definitely not like a massive fan of the Star Wars. In fact, I wasn't a big. I didn't really like the movie that they brought out last time, but the Star Wars Rogue One, I am all in that. I'm 100%. I'm all on top of it. That trailer, damn, that's just some good shit right there. You can't get around, and that's just good. And I know there is obviously a lot. I mean, Star Wars now is very much like an in thing, right? It's since the movie came out and they started putting out more stuff, like the popularity started to soar again, and it's good stuff. It's good stuff. I mean, I do like a bit of Star Wars. I watch Star Wars, Star Trek. I've been watching Luke Cage. I don't know if anyone else has been watching that. That's a damn good show in its own right. So yeah, plenty of good shows out there. And just looking at any of the Marvel shows that are on there, they're all good. They're all really, really good. Worth your time. All right, then. That's enough procrastination. Let's get into some wrestling talk because there's a lot of very interesting topics, as you probably would have heard about in the title of this week's show. Let's get into this then. So, Paige, back in the news again. Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of these news stories are follows up of of news stories that we've covered before, and unfortunately, they just keep popping back up in the news. And sometimes we get news stories that come out in wrestling, and for some reason that it's not going to end there, that something's going to happen. And the Paige situation is one of those things. I honestly believe when she sent out that statement saying that I'm going to be returning to WWE and everything's going to be fine, I very much doubted at that point that was 100% the last that we were going to hear about this situation. And unfortunately, it's not. So Paige, what happened with Paige this week? She was suspended for the second time on the wellness policy. A second violation of the wellness policy. That means she's suspended for 60 days. Now, here is the interesting part on this. Of course, she's only just got over her first suspension, of which she came out and said that it was her missing like a checkup or something along those lines, or she got a call or something she didn't manage to test at an appropriate time, but she didn't fail a test. It was something along those lines. She didn't actually, she didn't take the test, so technically it counts as a failure. This one's a little bit more interesting. So she popped for the wellness policy. She is adamant, Paige, that whatever she got popped for was painkillers that she was given to aid her rehabilitation of the injury that she's currently recovering from. WWE have come out and denied that. And they've come out and said, no, it's for a illegal substance that she's been popped for, which, you know, could still very well be what Paige is talking about. You know, I take very powerful painkillers for my leg. I'm sure if I got drug screened, that would be quite interesting. But anyway, that's what's happened. But it's when you look at the past of what WWE has done, the statements from Paige's family and herself, it's becoming increasingly aware that it's unlikely that Paige will ever return to WWE. Not ever, that's maybe a bit too strong. That she will return during, let's say, the next couple of years. I firmly believe that this is a precursor to Paige leaving the company. So let's get into this then, because we've got to break this down, because that's quite a hefty statement for someone that's, I think she's only 23, 24. She should still have so many years left on her career at the highest level, no doubt. And she's a great wrestler. We all know this. So Paige's family have released multiple statements, sticking by their, by their family member here, as you expect them to. I don't blame them for doing so. But if it was her goal to go back to WWE and put all this behind her, just find some way of moving forward with WWE, then these statements by her family have pretty much killed it. And the reason why I say that is WWE doesn't like being questioned on these matters, even when they're wrong. Okay, so even when they're wrong and they know they're wrong, they find a way of eventually canning people who attempt to prove their innocence at the company's expense. And it further proves that the wellness policy itself is hugely flawed, and it can be used at times as a weapon against the talent. And the reason the wellness policy itself, I think, has had a shit year. And the reason why I say that is because you heard the likes of Brock Lesnar, who got popped for PEDs, right, at UFC by an independent commission. And then WWE just come out straight afterwards and admit, well, we don't test our part-time talent. So that immediately makes the entire system dumb. It makes it stupid, right? It doesn't work. There's a massive loophole there. Which technically has to do with signing a new contract with WWE that makes her a part-time star. She could smoke, take any pills, she could do what the fuck she likes, and she wouldn't get popped for it. Which is ridiculous. I'm sure Paige right now is sitting next to Alberto Del Rio and is looking at the fact that she's not going to get paid for 60 days. Because this removes her from any payment, even the flat rate when you're injured from WWE. So it removes you from any payment. It's unpaid suspension. So she's looking at this, and she's looking at someone like Brock Lesnar, and she's thinking, well, the company is just to put people like me down, you know. So one theory that you could say is that Paige is doing this intentionally to try and get out of her long-term contract. Now, we know that Paige is in a long-term contract with WWE, and it's one of those things that the wellness policy might be her ticket out. Now, some people have said that by her doing this, that she would be throwing her career away. And I disagree. She's throwing her WWE career away. That is true. I'll admit that. And she could come back later on down the line. There have been people that have, purposefully got themselves canned by WWE and then managed to get back, right? There has been. She's not the first person to do it if this is indeed what she's doing. I'm just going by a theory here, of course. But let's say that WWE can her ass and she's unemployed. Do you really think that in the booming UK wrestling scene at the moment, that she wouldn't be able to make a handy-dandy career for herself there and pay and get a lot of money there? She would be able to support herself without any issue in the UK, bearing in mind that her family owns and runs wrestling companies. And even if they didn't, every single company would want Paige in the UK on appearing at their shows. There would be no hotter indie female commodity than Paige. None. She would be instantly. Now, I'm not saying across the world, of course, but in the UK, Paige would be big bollock business, okay? There'd be a lot of people throwing money at her, right? So I think people are going this. I disagree. I think that's a little bit of a short, a little bit of a short-sighted look at the situation. And I always look back to what Daniel Bryan said, that he was at times earning more money as an indie wrestler than he was in his early days of WWE. So I think that's going a little bit overboard. That being said, this is an awkward situation. If you're going to ask me what my personal thought is, I thought maybe with one suspension and what happened with Del Rio, it was unlikely that she would return. And you can't exactly go against anyone's word apart from hers. She says she's doing so, and I imagine that she maybe thought that until I think the suspension may have changed her mind. I think the suspension would have taught her that WWE clearly has something against her and Del Rio. And you may be saying that's a little bit paranoid of me. I think you only need to go and look at the fact that they love to play games with relationships in that company. It's a historical thing. They wanted to play with Lana and Rusev, right, until they end up getting married and, and all that sort of shit. And I'm not even talking about this. I mean, they loved to do this 20 years ago. I mean, talking in the golden age of wrestling. They just loved fucking around with relationships in wrestling for some reason. One thing that excites me about all of this is that we've heard these stories apparently about Mark Carrano threatening Paige that if she didn't end it with Del Rio, that she would be fired, or maybe even worse, that she would just fall into obscurity and they would just pay her flat checks, is what her credibility falls. If she does get canned by WWE, that first podcast that she goes on is going to be explosive, because she has full right then, if the company has basically elbowed her out, to really go full ham on them and really give her side of the story about all this. I dislike the running narrative. Just a stronger woman than this. I dislike the running narrative that she's throwing her career away just so she can be with Del Rio. I don't like that. I think she's a stronger woman, that she is sticking up for her morals. And like I said, it's not the end of her career. If she gets canned by WWE, she'll make plenty of money in the UK. It really won't be a problem. So there we are. That's what I have to say about it on that front. Defending Paige a little bit here with this, but bring all of the story. Maybe even from both sides, but I'm sure we'll see how the picture clears up as time goes on. I don't know if you saw this, guys, but this was making the rounds over the course of this week. Nancy Grace walked out of a Sam Roberts interview. Now, if you don't know Sam Roberts or Nancy Grace, I'll explain. Sam Roberts is a guy you may even have seen on the WWE Network on those listing shows, but he's actually quite a well-known podcaster, and he does wrestling podcasts. And, he's had plenty of actual talent on his show, former talent on his show. So he's well known in the circles, and he's one of the more better known podcasters in pro wrestling. Let's just say that, especially someone that had no association with the industry beforehand, like a prior, like, let's say JR or Steve Austin or blah, 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 going on from there. So he had a radio show, and Nancy Grace came on. And now Nancy Grace is a sorry excuse for a human being. I'm just going to say it out there right now. If you go through this woman's rap sheet, man, and it's not, this is the same woman. If you don't know who she is, you probably would remember Diamond Dallas Page going on a show to talk about the Ultimate Warrior just after he had died. And then that show essentially sandbagging him and trying to turn it into a steroids are killing wrestlers sort of deal. And they listed tons of names, including Owen Hart, of which we know did not die from steroids. Who was at the helm of that? It was Nancy Grace. Nancy Grace was the host of that show. And she's hosted a lot of shows in her time. She's this woman who maybe even as famously really went ape shit on this woman on one of her interview shows, demanding answers, demanding the truth, and this woman clearly rattled. This woman committed suicide the day after after being basically, humiliated and pushed and prodded by Nancy Grace. And this is the sort of woman who still to this day cannot hold her hands up and say, okay, maybe I have some accountability in this. I need to change for the future. This is the sort of woman who cannot accept that, one, her views are flawed, and two, that she may, just even a little bit, be using all of this tragedy that she reports about for her own gain. She can't even accept it. So when they bring it up in this interview, she goes completely on defense, completely passive-aggressive mode. And I don't have any time for the woman. And to be honest, I thought that Sam Roberts, especially, maybe not so much his co-host, who did go a little bit hard on it, I will say that. I think Sam Roberts was pretty much bringing over, and he wanted to ask her about, how did you feel about the fact that DDP was very, very angry with the way that you dealt with that story? And Nancy Grace, her only response to this was, well, I'm not a lot of wrestlers feel that way. How she has the gall to say that to someone like Sam Roberts, who has spoken to far more wrestlers than Nancy Grace ever will, it just speaks volumes of the woman. That she's got her head firmly planted within her own anus, that you could call her a pretzel. It's basically along those lines. I urge you to watch it. It's cringy. It's awkward to watch because clearly there's a certain point when Nancy decides, well, you motherfuckers, you're clearly against me and you want to run this narrative. They was asking her questions, and she knew that the answers were bullshit because they're her own bullshit answers. She refused to give them. And I think that's another sign of the woman in general. So, go and check it out. That's all I have to say on that front. And I do like Sam Roberts, by the way. I think he's, I always like the way he comes across in his podcasts and stuff. He looks like a good guy, and hopefully some way down the line, because he's much more popular than we are here on this show. Maybe we could get a conversation going for him here and, get him on the show. I don't know. We got Solid Monster. Who knows, right? We'll give it a crack. Here's the other big news. I'm going to be spending all this time here on on the news section this week. There were a lot of big stuff coming out. You probably would be wondering why I didn't start with this. And it's because the story kept developing as the week went on. We're talking about TNA again. And I apologize to our TNA fans because they've probably taken a lot of shit from this show. And I always say that whenever we bring them up, we're not big fans of the company. We'll just put that out there now. But let's talk about what happened this week. So last week it seemed as if the ship had readied itself. They had managed to fund their pay-per-view and their taping of future episodes until at very least the end of this year, when it looked like doom and gloom was happening. Thought, okay, we're here at the end of this now. Billy Corgan would take over the company in the coming weeks, and then hopefully there'll be some sort of bright future for the TNA brand. Maybe not even the TNA brand, but just for the company and the wrestlers involved. Because Corgan's one of those guys that, unlike Dixie, I've got respect for Corgan. You can clearly see that he loves wrestling. Dixie loves wrestling, but almost to a detriment, right? So I'm going to get into this here. What happened this week? Billy Corgan, who is, let's just say, has been adopted as the savior of TNA, even by their own diehard fans, has entered litigation against TNA. What's going on here? Not only that, TNA owe clearly an inordinate amount of money to the state of Tennessee, who are deciding now that they're going to have to start really putting the pressure on the company and maybe even repossess their shit until TNA can pay their debts, because they're in millions of dollars of debt, right? It's not good news, guys. It's not. So what happened? So here we go. So Corgan he's spoken very little. Apparently, all the documents for the lawsuit are under seal, so no one can see them, and a restraining order has been put in place. So I don't know what that means. But here's what I think what has happened. I think that Corgan has found some way. He's funded a few shows beforehand, but he's found some way of funding Bound for Glory and the tapings. with the caveat being that he would buy Dixie out of the company, and then therefore he can do what he feels he needs to do to save the company from the brink of extinction, right? It looks like the company is on the edge of the void, and it's almost on a rock slide and it can't come back. Billy Corgan, that's what I think happened here. And as soon as Corgan found some way of funding these tapings, like I said, this is all just a theory, but found some way of funding these tapings and the pay-per-view, when it was time for Dixie to sell up, no. All we know is that something that Dixie's done has fucked up the process here. Dixie, for some reason, has thrown a spanner into the works with Corgan taking over. And I think Corgan is entering litigation against TNA to get his fucking money back. That's what I think he's doing. Now, I don't know that for sure, of course, because these documents are under seal. But that's what I think what's happened here. I think he's pumped so much money now into TNA with the idea that he would take it over. Now it's time for Dixie to play ball, and she's refusing to play ball. So Dixie, in a sense, is holding TNA like a child, but she's hugging it so tightly it can't fucking breathe. Just let it go to its new adoptive father, so that adoptive father can actually take it out somewhere and do something with it. Dixie wants to hold on to TNA until it crumbles in her hands. That's what she's doing right now. I heard even some reports saying here that the deal with WWE to buy the tape library is now off the table because John Gaburik wanted to make sure that he had an executive position in WWE once that sale went through. It's like the rats trying to make sure they've got a raft to land on when they flee the sinking ship. This is ridiculous. No news coming out of TNA recently has been good news. It's all been bad. Even worse was the fact that TNA have litigation in regards to the music that they use for some of their pro wrestlers. So the most recent episode that came out, they couldn't even air the entrance music. They had to pipe in fan noise for the entrance music. I can't even make half this shit up. This is a domino effect of fuckery here. I don't even know how someone could actually fuck up a company this badly. I don't understand how Dixie Carter has done it. This is monumental. This is unheard of. This is worse than WCW. It really is. I don't understand this. So, yeah, I'm sure that we're going to get more news about TNA over the next couple of weeks. And I very much doubt that any of it is going to be positive. I'm pretty much sure that as soon as we hear what this actual litigation is with Billy Corgan, then God, that's going to be an interesting read. I honestly don't think that Billy Corgan's going to be back with the company unless Dixie actually sells. And I don't think Dixie's got any intention to. She has nixed plans for investment into TNA because it would remove her from power beforehand. So I think Dixie's looking at this with, I can still save the company. I can still do it. I don't care who I fuck over. I don't care who I plead money to. I can still save TNA. And she can't. She can only make things worse, which is what she's doing. She's killing the company because she refuses to sell. That's the way it is. You know? So that's the situation TNA's in. I actually am starting to feel sorry for these diehard TNA fans who have been banging their head against the wall all this time and saying, well, you all say we're going to die, and we never do. We're always in there. I've always felt bad for you guys, and the reason I feel bad is because you've got to listen to this shit, and you've got to listen to all these problems with the company that clearly that you're such a fan of, and I'm not going to knock you for that. If you don't want to be a fan of WWE, fair enough. You want to be a fan of TNA, all the power to you. And I feel bad for you that you have to read all this news every single week and try and convince yourself that it doesn't fucking exist, when clearly it does. As much as TNA try and tell everyone, don't listen to the dirt sheets, clearly there's something up here. Clearly there's something going on with Billy Corgan. He would not be filing a lawsuit against TNA itself and Dixie Carter and her husband for some reason, unless there was a serious reason for doing so. Billy Corgan does not want to kill TNA. He wants to save the fucking thing. But I think now he's starting to realize that unless Dixie sells, there's nothing he can do, and he may as well take his money and get the fuck out of there. So, awful news for TNA fans. Absolutely awful. I feel horrible. I feel horrible for the talent that's in there, because they've got a great talent pool at TNA. They've got some good-ass wrestlers there, including some new stars that have only just started there, like Damian Sandow, who's going under Aaron Rex. You got, what was it, Brandy Rhodes, who wants to start wrestling, going to TNA with the option of doing so. It looks like the company ain't going to be around long enough for her to be doing that sort of stuff. Cody Rhodes went in to wrestle some people. There's a lot of people here. Look at Lashley, look at Broken Matt. I'm sure he'll find work over. But it's also like he's reinvigorated his career inside TNA. He's reinvigorated his career inside of a dying company, and it's just more of a testament to him more than anything. So, yeah, it's awful stuff. It really is. And when eventually TNA closes its doors, the aftermath is going to be catastrophic. And the reason why I say that, it's not so much catastrophic for the industry. It's just going to be, you're going to feel the reverberations for a long time. People are going to be talking about the ins and outs of TNA for years afterwards. And you're going to start seeing a lot of similarities between TNA and WCW in its final years. So there we are. And like I said, I apologize to our TNA fans because, you must hear this from a lot of podcasts, a lot of stuff going on. I just feel bad. I really do. There's nothing else to say. I just feel bad. Anyway, one thing I did do this week was catch Bret Hart's comments. He apologized to Michael P.S. Hayes. He apologized to Seth Rollins, to Triple H. And he said that the reason why he stopped podcasting is because he felt like he was coming up with negative things and a lot of negative stuff along those lines. I actually never caught an episode of Bret's podcast, which I feel bad for because he is actually my favorite wrestler, but still. Maybe this is him maybe saving some bridges. I don't know. It's weird for Bret to come out with this, considering he's got such the allure of just not giving a shit in general, And the things he was saying, they were pretty harsh. To come out and apologize now for them, I'm just in. I was a bit shocked at that because Bret's one of those guys that he will normally stick by what he says. Maybe not the stuff about the Freebirds and stuff like that. Maybe I would expect him an apology on that, but the stuff about Seth Rollins, maybe, I don't know. It makes you wonder whether or not WWE came calling and said, "Oh, we're about to do X, Y, and Z if you want to get back in the fold." And Bret's like, maybe I need to make a few apologies before I start working back and doing maybe a DVD or a network's show or something along those lines. I don't know, but still. Even more, not even more interesting, but maybe more of a talking point here. I had told you guys that I was going to watch Holy Foley. Now, I know it's been out for ages. I honestly haven't been able to sum up the strength to go and watch the first episode. And I have. And I did the challenge with myself and my wife of how far we could get through the first 5 episodes of Holy Foley. We watched the entirety of episode 1. The idea of clicking play on episode 2 caused me physical pain. So I didn't do it. So there we go. We ended after episode 1. And I'm going to talk about Holy Foley. I know exactly what this show needs. It needs cocaine. No, you didn't mishear me. I meant it. I said every single member of that family, including the kids, if you really want interesting television, needs to take cocaine. Now, you may be wondering, but why, Tony? Surely everything in the world can be solved with cocaine. Not everything, but I think Holy Foley can. FYI, guys, I know we've got some younger viewers. Don't go and take cocaine. Just don't do it. I'm joking here. But let me go with what I'm saying here. So I've been watching Foley in his current role on the main roster, so I thought maybe I'll go see him in a new light. I really wish I hadn't, because this entire show is forced reality. It's an absolute scripted mess. It's painful. In fact, it's one of the more cringiest shows I've watched. I hate watching shows when you're visibly wincing at some of the scenes in it. Like, oh, God, you're really trying to make us believe that you actually had a conversation like that. Jesus Christ. The reason why I say the stuff about cocaine is because what they're trying to do is trying to make this a weird mix of a reality show like titled Divas, which E produces, and that's a success for them. And they're trying to make it their version of the Osbournes. Now, our younger viewers may not remember what the Osbournes was. Osbournes was basically one of the shows that birthed the reality genre. And it was following the lives of Ozzy Osbourne and his family. And it was hugely entertaining and successful. And the reason being is because for the entirety of all the seasons, all of that family were as high as fuck. All of them were smoking everything under the sun. And it was fun. You know, I was going to say right now, it was fun watching them be disorganized and all that lot, because it didn't come off as fake, because you could honestly believe that these guys were coked out of their head and they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Now, obviously, I'm happy that they're all doing much better now, but in terms of entertainment value, that was quite fun. You know, now, to be honest, this show is just dead on arrival. It's shit. It's bad. I know it is. And it's one of those things that when I watched the Edge and Christian show, that had a bad opening show, but you could kind of realize that maybe they might find their feet. With this, it's not so much the jokes like the Edge and Christian show or the gags that they were pulling. Here is the actual show itself, the forced reality section of it, that is going to turn a lot of people away. And I very much doubt that Holy Foley is really getting a lot of their fan base involved. That's just the bottom line of it here. So, yeah. I mean, my wife, who likes reality show and accepts stuff like the Kardashians are incredibly forced reality shows, I thought maybe she would be a lot more into this. She wasn't. So, you know, she just disliked it. There's just no other way to go around it. And, you know, that's quite shocking on that front, considering that these are the sort of shows she's into. There was actually one point here where she says, you know, Foley's sitting there and he's like, you know, I just feel like something's like hanging over my head. And she came up with the best line. She said, yeah, no shit, Sherlock, you've got a microphone hanging over your head. And I was like, that's quite funny. I thought that got me right there. But it kind of gives a factor into these reality shows and, you know, how you know, how far away they are from real reality, how disconnected they are from actually being reality. And the realistic reason for that is because reality is boring. So they try and do it under the guise of you know, reality show. I don't want to go into all this shit. But Holy Foley sucks. Leave a bag of cocaine in there, let someone take it. There we go. I'm not saying I endorse it, but you can't deny that shit would be a lot more entertaining. You know? So there we are. Although I think if Mrs. Foley took some cocaine, I think her head might explode. She seems a very uptight sort of type, but still. Anyway, let's get into our fan feedback then. So we went through the news there. There was a lot of stuff to go through. If I go way over time on this episode, I don't know how long this is going, because normally I have something else going on. So I apologize for that. Anyway, let's get into this then. Fan feedback. We got a lot of questions from you guys this week, and I know a couple of you left questions at the end of last week, and it was like on a Friday. We actually recorded on a Friday, so we didn't actually catch those questions there. But I'm going to cover them this week. No stone unturned. You know how it is here on this show. You know, I've got to cover all the bases. So Broken Matt, as his name is, I very much doubt you are the real Broken Matt. Or maybe you are a Matt who is broken, but not Broken Matt Hardy. Maybe, I don't know. But he does bring up the subject of Sasha Banks here. And his question is in regards to whether or not we think that WWE has overemphasized women empowerment in general. He says that it's now getting to an uncomfortable level. He says the fact that we heard the same speech before from her and it's kind of alienating her male fans, but saying her victory was all for the women out there and stuff like that. He's also unhappy at the women's title match needlessly being put inside of Hell in a Cell. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that Hell in a Cell stuff later on in the Raw review. But just to defend that match for a second, it's not so much the women specifically getting random matches inside Hell in a Cell. The men have had that for years as well when it comes to this event now. They shoehorn rivalries to go inside Hell in a Cell, and really beforehand it used to be used to blow off a blood feud. I think the last time they had something on those lines was Ambrose and Rollins, which wasn't even for a championship. They just fought inside the cell because they hated each other, right? So just to defend them on that front, I know it's not a great defense. I've defended the women by kind of throwing WWE under the bus, but they're hardly the only gender to be put in needless Hell in a Cell matches, shall we say. So I do agree with you, however, on the Sasha Banks stuff, and you're hardly the first person to bring this up, and I think I've even talked about this before, but a lot of people are starting to feel the sting of the constant reminders of how groundbreaking, and I put that in quotations, WWE are being with this women's division. They look at this as a marketing goldmine to parade themselves as the paragons for women's justice in an increasingly social sensitive society, you know. The problem is that they've had, and this is going back even from the women's revolution, is that it's been a lot more talk than work. More recently, they have broken a lot of things. Like, for instance, they had that main event on Raw. However, that being said, go back to that main event on Raw with not Sasha and Charlotte, but go to Lita and Trish, which was the first women's main event on Raw. Go back and watch that. Now, do you think over the course of the weeks afterwards that you had Lita going out there and saying, I made history, and, you know, after having this match, and, you know, this is all for women? No, they continued their feud. They carried on fighting each other, or they fought other people for the championship. It's like WWE, it's almost a little bit like, in a less social change sort of way, when they go out there and Sasha Banks does this saying, well, you know, we made an event here and here and here, of which I'm all up for, by the way. I've always said here before that I do want the women to be having more of these matches. I do want women to be having stipulation matches and have more of the focus put on them. But when they come out there and say, oh, you know, we've done this and it's fantastic, we're breaking new ground, you know what it feels like? It feels like a segment built upon their Did You Know infographics. If they honestly sent someone out there from their media team to have a 10-minute promo about the fact they have more Twitter followers than anyone else, that's kind of, you'd end up having the same result here. You know? And I don't think it's so much about the women's revolution that people have a problem with, because, I mean, I think the majority of fans are very much on board with that. I think it's WWE patting themselves on the back about it and making Sasha Banks only come off as if she cares about the women being the focal point. I always thought that Sasha Banks didn't really care so much about that. She only cared about winning championships and beating people up. Now, I remember the Sasha Banks who threw glasses at Izzy at TakeOver. That's the sort of Sasha Banks we might need back again before the fans do end up turning on her. So, yeah, there is a problem here. Here's the ultimate thing of this. I've got some bad news for you, and I've got some good news for you. The bad news is for the you know, what's coming up now, you know, in terms of the future, let's say 6 months down the line. This is not going to end. This is going to keep on going. You haven't heard the last speech on this front. But here's the good news. Soon, hopefully, the women will be in a place on the roster where they're getting time. They get the odd main event match from Raw when it's necessary. They get their stipulation matches. So much so that sort of thing will become the norm. And we can all enjoy the women's roster without WWE feeling the need to over-promote it, in a sense, and have that as their running rhetoric. So basically my thing is to stick in there for now and kind of swallow what their agenda is for now in terms of trying to parade this as them being so fantastic, even though, you know, their use of women over the years has been, you know, very questionable. I think that we can just say that for now. I think over like a year to 18 months, I think they'll call it off a little bit more, because then the women will have main evented Raw. By then, the women will have had stipulation matches. And then their whole thing of having, for the first time ever, or, we're breaking new ground. There's only so much ground for them to break before eventually they're in their place. It's all sorted, and WWE can't really market it anymore. When it gets to that point, things will start getting a little bit better, because then these women can just do their work and they can entertain us. They can put on great matches in match types, in main events, maybe even main event a pay-per-view. I don't give a shit. But eventually, WWE will run out of ways that they can market it their way. And then hopefully, you'd hope then that the women would just be in a healthier place, the division, and not stuck behind WWE thinking, well, we can't really market it as a social change anymore, so we just won't put them out there, which is an unfortunate possibility down the line as well. But we'll soon see how it goes. But you're not wrong, and you're not the only fan who is picking up on this. If anything, I have realized that fans, I think WWE are at the brink at the moment. If they keep doing this, they risk turning the fans against Sasha Banks, which may not be a bad thing if you wanted to go heel, but you may end up turning the fans against her. Yeah. But we'll look into that anyway. Thomas Oliver asks if we ever think British wrestling will ever be as popular as it used to be in the times of Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks. Man, you're going very far back there, my friend. Jeez, Daddy. I haven't heard those names for a long time. But, when I was a young kid growing up, and you'd hear those names, especially as a British lad, those names coming around. They would be in the papers and stuff, right? So, yeah, I know. I think there's a chance now, actually. And the reason why I say that is, listen, I don't think that British wrestling is ever going to reach the popularity in terms of those particular stars, right? Because there were two big names that resonated across the nation. But in terms of the industry in general and how healthy it is, I think the UK is pretty close. We're in a boom in the UK at the moment. Even Ireland is doing pretty well. There's a local wrestling group over here that seem to be tearing it up. In fact, I'm ashamed to call myself a wrestling fan and not have gone and checked them out. So I think the UK are doing pretty well. They're in a situation here where they've brought up a lot of very good wrestlers. They can bring in a lot of very good foreign talent into the country, and you're seeing a lot of these indie promotions doing very well for themselves and really making a marker, and fantastic for them. I think that's now the only thing that could maybe halt this is I think the reason why it has to be that way and they can't start building up one or two guys to really be the focal point of UK wrestling is because when they immediately start doing that and these two guys start getting a lot of traction and really becoming like household names, WWE are going to snap them up like that. They're going to be all over that shit, and those guys will be wrestling at NXT as soon as they get hot. They'll be put in NXT. So in a way, WWE, the UK scene spreading it out and making a lot of stars over a lot of different places is the best way for them to go. That's what I believe anyway. Kane St. Dennis says, since Halloween is coming up, had either of us ever dressed up as a wrestler? Kane has gone as Ric Flair and Randy Savage. I'm almost a little bit ashamed that you haven't dressed up as Kane. That's your next one for this year, okay? I don't know if you got plans, but I'm basically making it for you there. But there you go. Obviously, I can't answer for Matt. I'm sure if he has, I would have seen it, but I haven't cosplayed as any current wrestler. I just don't cosplay much in general. As soon as the kids came around, if I'm ever making anything, normally it's costumes for them and all that sort of stuff. But maybe even geekier than that, if you want to go even like more of a over the deep end. Back in the day, myself and Matt, this is going for a little bit of a personal story here, as I know you guys do enjoy them. Myself and Matt used to go to a rock club. I won't say where because it's quite close to where Matt actually lives. But we used to go to this rock club, and it was a rock venue that we used to go with our friends. We had a big social circle going there. This is back when I was living in the country. And for one of the nights, we decided that we would do a theme. And the theme was that we would dress up like all of our created characters on the wrestling video games. And we did. So we actually dressed up. Now, my guy was like a muscle-bound, bandana-wearing douchebag. Like, basically, I look back at it now, and he basically looks like a douche, right? I didn't know that at the time. I thought, oh, look, he looks cool. He's in all black, and, because I was a kid, right? I say a kid, I was like 16, 17. So it's not really, when you can slip under drinking age in the UK. So we went in as all of our characters. And it's funny that at the time, talking about the muscle-bound character that I was trying to portray myself as, I was only 8 stone at the time, which is fucking tiny, as anyone will know. I'm over double that now because I get fed by a beautiful wife who knows what's good for me. But at the time, I didn't know what was good for me, and I was not eating that much and working out way too much to the point that I look like a stick figure. That's just the honest way of it there. So this 8 stone guy with basically no muscles at all trying to portray this wrestler. Looking back at it now, I have a good laugh. I will say that now. I have also gone to a party, as a work friend's party who's doing fancy dress. I went as Jack the Lad, which was my wrestling. I put on all my wrestling gear when I was doing training at the time. So I had my Jack the Lad t-shirt and I had tights. I didn't have my boots back then because I hadn't arrived. And I never ended up arriving because I ended up, I wasn't very good. I've always said that before. And then I ended up getting like a knee injury that I required surgery on or something along those lines. And then I basically never went through with the purchase of the boots. And the boots would have been the last bit of my gear. So there is that. There's that on that front. So, they're the 2 times I've dressed up as a wrestler. A funny story about that time I dressed up in my wrestling gear as I was adjusting my tights. They were a little bit tight around the crotchal region. So this lovely looking girl at the time got the just a fantastic look at my mate in veg. She wasn't so much impressed as she was shocked and a little bit embarrassed. But who knows? Who knows? If I hadn't already been dating someone at the time, then maybe I might have tried to work on that. Because sometimes the shock factor breaks the ice. You know what it is. You know what it is. I'm married now, so I don't need to do that shit. But still, the things you learn about us here on these solo podcasts, huh? But you asked the question. I can only answer. Alex from World Wrestling Boom asks, how would we build up a SmackDown versus Raw Survivor Series elimination match? And who would we have on each team? So it looks like we're going to get this. I've heard from, I think the challenge was made on SmackDown, so I haven't watched it, and Matt isn't here to tell us if that's the case. But apparently I've heard that that's the case. So this is going to go ahead. I would make it, because WWE has this usual thing with the brand split, that they'll just make their rosters go against each other. Whoever wins gets bragging rights, which they even made a pay-per-view centered around it. The whole idea is that they would get bragging rights and they would get a trophy that they might even parade around the week afterwards, and then it'll get instantly forgotten. So in that sense, it was a waste of time. What I would do, which would be a lot more on the line, I know it's not loads, but it would be something, is that I would make it so whichever brand wins the Survivor Series match, they get a random draft pick to their show from one of the members of the losing team. So you'd get someone from random from the opposite team. So instantly, that would be the reason why, because it comes in storyline, that would be the reason why, at a risk to the roster as a whole, whoever's the GMs probably wouldn't put their champions in charge just in case they lose and then the championship gets drafted to, the other show. Because you want your champion to be having championship matches at that pay-per-view to beef it up, of course. But it just makes it more sense there. And that way there's something on the line. That way, if the team wins, the GMs are going to be quite happy with the fact that they've got a new wrestler on their roster. They've got a new body that they can promote. And here's what I would do. So these teams are going to be a little bit lackluster to some of you, but you have to remember that a lot of the other names here that you might have to put in there probably are involved in other matches. So Brock Lesnar, Goldberg, that seems to be in. You got Kevin Owens, and probably Seth Rollins is going to wrestle him again. I don't know, but they seem to be wrestling each other. So that's already a lot of big names, on Raw. That's 3, right? On SmackDown, Dean Ambrose, John Cena, AJ Styles, probably involved in something with the World Championship. So you can't have something with them. Dolph Ziggler and Miz, so you can't really have them involved. So I've tried to look at some of the mid-cards to at least give you an entertaining match with people that they don't normally have anything going for them. Here's what I've gone with. So with Raw, Enzo and Cass, Sami Zayn, Braun Strowman and Chris Jericho versus American Alpha, Baron Corbin, Randy Orton, and Bray Wyatt. And here's how I would book it. I would have Randy Orton and Wyatt take themselves out during the match because clearly they hate each other so much they just can't work on the same team, which is not possible. So you go along with that. Or maybe Bray Wyatt only accepted the match as a chance to get at Randy Orton and Luke Harper shows up, blah, 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 blah. So it ends up being 3-on-5. So Corbin and Strowman end up having a brawl and end up having a double DQ or double count out. Because you don't really want either guy having a pinfall victory, especially someone not Strowman in this match, considering he's been booked as the Beast, right? You don't want him to take a pin. This would be the wrong point for him to take his first loss. So you do that. So then it becomes 2-on-4. And then American Alpha still haven't had a big moment yet on the roster since coming up. This would be their first big moment without winning the championships. They would actually win the Survivor Series match for their team. And who would they get? They would get Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn would make the trip over to SmackDown. And the reason being is because he's not doing anything on Raw. And SmackDown needs world title and IC title contenders. And Sami Zayn could do that very nicely. I think it would solve more than a few problems and it would give you an entertaining match. So that's what I would go with. Racist Fan Rocks says that if I were in Lucha Underground, what tribute would we be in? He'd be in the Paul London tribute. I have to say, mate, I apologize. I don't know what you mean. I actually haven't been watching Lucha Underground long enough. I didn't even know that Paul London was in it. So I don't even know if he is. So I don't quite understand, or if it's something new I've watched, I don't know. So apologies, my friend. I can't really answer it. I don't really know what you're on about there. Cam Brock asks, what are our favorite finishers and entrance themes? And he asks if we think Sasha Banks is overrated. See, you're not the only person talking about Sasha Banks in an unfortunate light. No, I don't. I think Sasha is very, very good. I mean, she wouldn't have had two of the best matches last year if she wasn't a good wrestler. And she's a good speaker as well. We know that. I think she's being booked wrong, and I think she's in the wrong slot at the moment. That's what I think. I think the way that they've gone about her being the champion and the face of the division is a bit unfortunate. And I think that it's burning people out that she's constantly wrestling Charlotte over and over and over again. And they're basically trading the title backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. You know, that's the way it is. I think WWE, it's WWE's fault more than hers. So, and I think that she's one of those people that I know you want her to be the face of the division, but Bayley's there now, and I'm sure that you can have Sasha go heel down the line. And she can put off heel because we've seen it before, and it's worked beautifully. Finishers and entrance themes. So Austin's Disturbed entrance, I've always really liked. I just like the visceral nature of it and how they kind of went along with that entrance. And Austin's entrance is a good one anyway. I quite like his entrance. I was one of the only people that like Ziggler's Perfection theme. I mean, he kind of went out of that pretty quickly and went to the one he has now, but I actually quite like the Perfection theme. One of my favorite heel themes is The Rock's heel theme from 02 and 03. Finishers, the Red Arrow. That's very awkward. No, Red Arrow, just for the visual, because that is sexy. There's no other way to get about it. It's just a sexy move. The Stunner is a great finisher, and it's only great because of how some people sold it. People like The Rock, who would sell it like he was bouncing off the ropes like a pinball. Fantastic. Just so much fun. Talking of Paige, funny enough, I really like her Rampage move. That looks dirtier than any DDT that anyone does at the moment. And I know it's kind of bastardized now, but when Jake Roberts did his just the DDT, that used to be like a big deal back in the day, him doing the DDT, and people would pop for that, you know. So, and just the way he did it as well, you know, there was a certain appeal, like he would snap that head back. He would really make you think that guy is just out of it, you know. But a lot of those moves end up getting bastardized, like the super kick, right? The super kick used to be Shawn Michaels' go-to weapon for winning matches and championships. Now everybody on the roster does a super kick, it feels like, you know. Dolph Ziggler uses a super kick all the time, and I can't even remember when he last actually won a match with the super kick. So there we are. Oh, another theme as well. Sorry, going back onto themes. Sting's Crow theme. I love that theme. So much so that I just don't understand why they went with a new theme for Sting when I'm sure that people would have really resonated with that Crow theme. It's like Goldberg, who's coming back for Survivor Series. Would you really go for another entrance music for Goldberg when that real, you know, rhythmic beating, that's a really bad impersonation, but as soon as you hear that, you think Goldberg. Back with the Crow theme, as soon as you heard even just the first couple of notes, you thought of Sting, right? So there we are. All right, then. So that's the questions there this week. If you do, guys do want to leave any questions, you can leave them in the comment section below or all the social media outlets, as we did before. Just before we head into the reviews, I'm looking around for my drink, and you know what? I've just realized I didn't bring a drink up. I'm going to be dead at the end of this podcast. I'm not going to be able to talk. I do apologize. But alas, I will soldier on, and we'll see how we go from there. All right, then. So let's talk about WWE No Mercy. This aired at last Sunday. If you're wondering why we're not doing these pay-per-views reviews as a separate ones as we have done before, it's simply because it's just too many, and we'd end up just putting too many videos up. We're still planning on doing the Let's Talk More Wrestling for the Brand Shed pay-per-view, so that's what we're going for nowadays. But WWE, they're doing like 19 pay-per-views a year. That's just far too much. So that's why we're doing them here on this show. And in fact, they're doing so many pay-per-views now, I can't even remember the last time that I did a Sanctuary and Negativity or even Trivia. That's a long time going past now. But we have to cover what WWE put out there, and they're putting out far too much. I mean, we've said this before. But alas, here we go. So the show started off for the first time with the World Championship match kicking off the pay-per-view. Why did they do this? It's for the presidential debate. The presidential debate started just after the first hour of the show, so they decided to kick off the show with the world title matches. They maybe wanted the most eyes to be put on this match in terms of that. In a way, as much as I agree with what they did, it's almost a little bit like WWE being the dog and rolling on its back with its paws up, kind of accepting defeat here and not trying to, at very least, get their fans invested enough that they would, record the debate and then watch, No Mercy afterwards. But they clearly accepted here that people, no matter what they were going to put on, people were going to watch that debate, because that is entertainment right there. There's just no other way to go around it. And they wanted to see what Trump was going to say after all of his comments. This match was great. What I like about triple threat matches that have guys like AJ Styles in them is that the action never lets up. And you've got three guys here who have been around the block long enough that they can make what is sometimes a very awkward match type seem like a doddle. I agree. Here on this podcast, we give great respect to any matches that are like multi-team tag matches or fatal four-ways or anything like this, where they do it without it not even being one mistake, because the degree of difficulty to try and pull it off and plan it is just a lot harder than a singles match. Just the way it is, especially for the length of where they're going. I mean, I went on a good 20, 25 minutes here in this match. So it wasn't as if this was a quick match, and they get their spots in and go. No. It was good. That it almost gave the feeling that nothing else was going to be able to top it, which most of the show it wasn't able to. So Styles ends up retaining his championship in a very good match, claiming his third pinfall victory over John Cena this year. after hitting with a steel chair, which I thought was a bit strange considering all those matches we watched with Kevin Owens and John Cena. And geez, like Kevin Owens would throw everything at John Cena would kick out. No, just one chair shot to the back was enough for Styles to win here. There was a dumb moment here, which a lot of people picked up on. And even at the time, me watching, I was like, that's a bit stupid. So I think that as either Ambrose and Styles as a submission on each other. And instead of breaking up and then Cena locking in a submission hold to try and win the match, he just locks in the submission hold on the guy who's already in a submission hold. So obviously, whoever it was, I can't remember just off the top of my head, I don't have it in my notes, but that person tapped out. And yeah, it's like you're a 15-time world champion and you're honestly acting as if you're bemused that you don't know that that there's some confusion about who won the championship. I'm like, you're a 15-time world champion, mate. You'd think that you would understand that putting a submission on a guy who's already in a submission, that when he taps out, there would be a little bit of confusion going on there, It just makes Cena look dumb, to be honest, but there we are. It seemed just, like I said, it seems a bit stupid that he seemed shocked that the match restarted because of the inconclusive finish, but there we are. Styles retains his championship and they go on there. I think Cena is due to take another break to film American Grit. So he really is becoming a part-time wrestler at the moment. He took a break even before in the month leading to Styles winning the championship. So he's taking a lot more breaks nowadays. And we knew he'd eventually be transitioning himself out of the company. Not so much out of the company, but out of the full-time capacity that he was in. Nikki Bella versus Carmella. This was I wasn't impressed with this match. I'll just put that out there here now. It's a feud that keeps these women ticking over. Nikki gets the win with a changed rack attack. There isn't anything else to say here, really. Heath Slater and Rhino versus the Usos. I firmly believe the Usos were a lock for the titles here, that they would have American Alpha begin to rival with them. But this was a decent match. I like the fact that Rhino is becoming like the final exclamation point in these tag team matches, and Slater's just doing his thing by sticking in there long enough that Rhino could do his business. But Rhino's coming off like a fucking tank, like he's just running through falls, right? And he ends up winning the match for his team with a gore and setting up the ending. So Heath Slater and Rhino still the champions. I will say that since they won the championships, they haven't, as far as I've heard, they haven't had nearly as much of the same comical moments as they had leading up to the titles. So you hope that management doesn't think, well, they've got the championships now, so their rise is complete. No, I still think you should still run with Heath Slater. I think he's onto something. But they may be looking at it like, well, they're the champions now, we don't have to give them too much effort to try and keep them in that position. Which I would disagree. I think you strike while the iron's hot and you try and make him a star and not give up on someone like that and then have to rebook him 6 months down the line to get back to this point. But there we are. Corbin versus Swagger. This is just a straight up boring match. There's nothing else to say. Corbin gets the win with the end of days, but these are the kind of matches that would never be on a pay-per-view if it wasn't for the brand split. It's one of the unfortunate consequences of the brand split it are these kinds of matches. And then we come to the final three matches on the show. Dolph Ziggler versus The Miz. Why they didn't choose for this to go as the main event, I don't understand. And the reason being is because people are saying, well, Orton and Bray, which was the main event of the show, that's more name recognition there. Arguably, the more name recognition will be John Cena. So if you really want John Cena to go, but I understand this is different circumstances. But I think with the stipulations on board here, which is championship versus career, this easily, no matter the finish, should have been the ending. If Dolph Ziggler had lost his career and goes out of the show, then that should have been the ending of the show. If he had won the championship, then that should have been the ending moment of the show. So I don't understand why they decided to go with Orton and Bray, which is what they did. This match is fantastic. fantastic. This match is excellent. No other way to go about it. It's the best match I watched this week. So they succeeded, WWE, in making this match feel big time. Most interesting and engaging IC title feuds in a while. There were some very close calls. They had the crowd eating out of the palm of their hands for huge portions of this match. To be honest, it's only a teeny, like a little slither away from being put into match of the year contention. And the only reason I don't put it in there is because I just do believe that the Nakamura match was more entertaining. But if someone says to me, I like this match more because there was more on the line, then I can hardly disagree with you on that front. And it may be one of those matches that I look on at the end of this year and go, yeah, I need to look at this more. I need to look because this was better booked than the Nakamura match. But the match of the year itself is more along the lines of the actual match rather than the preconditions heading into it. So, still, anyway, we can all admit it was fantastic. This was a phenomenal match. Very happy to have watched it. They played off the drama of their earlier matches, with Maurice using the spray, Miz hitting his finisher, but then Ziggler hooking his leg on the ropes. They even brought out the Spirit Squad to cause a distraction for another skull-crushing finale, but Ziggler kicked out again. The crowd are all involved in this at this point. And as everyone else gets ejected from outside the ring, Ziggler claims the title with a super kick. Funny enough, I just said it wrong. When does he ever finish a match with a super kick? Well, he does here, so that was a bit dumb of me. And saves his career in one of the best IC title matches in recent history. This was fantastic. And I see no reason why they shouldn't have ended the show, especially with the ending. I think people would have looked at this show a lot more favorably overall if this match had ended the show. But in the end, it ended up with a match that wasn't as nearly as good. But still. They show footage here of Orton seeing his face getting all disfigured inside of a mirror. And the reason why I bring this up is because this is dangerously close to the absolute ridiculousness of the same angle that they did with Hulk Hogan in WCW. We are starting to wonder, wait a minute, if Orton's seeing it and we all see it, are we losing our mind the same as Orton is? Is Bray Wyatt in our mind? Like, what's going on here? Why can we see it? It just seems a bit strange. It's a bit dated. It's a bit dumb. You could show the effects on Orton in more realistic ways. And what I mean by that is, and just off the top of my head, you could have a bottle fall over in the locker room. He gets all panicked thinking it's Bray coming to attack him, but it's just a bottle that fell over. Not by supernatural means, but these things happen, just tumbled out from someone's bag. And he's like, shit, like almost a little bit shaken, like, that, and then you could cut to the commentary going, I think that Bray Wyatt may have gotten into his head here. But here they decided to go with a really weird route that kind of makes no sense, but there we are. Alexa Bliss versus Naomi. And I've got to call WWE out again. The second SmackDown pay-per-view, and they've pulled this shit again with basically advertising a match that they know full well won't be happening on the show, and then replacing it with something later on. That is false advertisement. There's no other way to go about it. The fact is that they were promoting this match as soon as, let's say, quarter of an hour before the show began. They're already putting on their Facebook page, are you excited for Bliss versus Becky Lynch? And putting up links to the to the show itself, of how to watch it and buy the network to watch this match. They knew long before that was put up that Becky Lynch would not be on this show, that she would not be performing. And how they think that's okay is only because people haven't called them out on it yet. All it takes is one person to call them up and go, actually, I think this is a bit of false advertisement here, because they were still advertising it. I know injuries happen, but you make it known as soon as the injury happens that this match isn't going ahead. We were hearing reports that Becky Lynch might not be able to wrestle a couple of days beforehand. That's just the bottom line of it here. So it's very dodgy. And I know that likely it won't happen again because it's just injuries, unfortunately, putting them into this situation. But It didn't help as well that this match was fucking messy. There's no other way to go about it. Both women seemed to get lost at times. Ended up being a bit of an awkward and sloppy affair. A few botches here and there. Naomi beats Bliss. Bliss has a mega hissy fit in the ring. She does have one of the best pissed off faces in the entire women's division. In fact, the entire company, I'll say that from there. And apparently this is to inject Naomi into this title feud. So I feel bad for Bliss because, like I said beforehand, that she hasn't had this big spotlight moment put on her at a main event for a championship, even in NXT, but she was going to get it here, and it looks like she might not even be getting that at Survivor Series. So it sucks a little bit. So we go to the actual main event. Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt. This match was wrestled at a snail's pace, which really harmed it. It just didn't seem to be going anywhere. It kind of meanders along until Luke Harper makes his return to give the distraction for the Sister Abigail, and then Wyatt gets the victory. I'm glad that Harper is back, but I talking about ways of booking him a couple of, I think like a month ago now, makes me not want him to be part of the Wyatt family down the line. Maybe they have something else planned for him, but I'm not sure. More than likely they'll just pair him back up with Orton, with Wyatt, and that'll be him, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, that's basically the end. There's not really much else to talk about the Orton and Bray match. They're going to wrestle each other again. This match is completely meaningless. I think that's a problem with this pay-per-view. You've got some good wrestling, but unfortunately, apart from the IC title match, the rest of it is really forgettable, which is a big shame. The entire pay-per-view is really forgettable, to the point that if I hadn't made notes, I probably wouldn't have remembered a lot of the matches. Remember here, until I looked at my notes here saying that Alexa Bliss wrestled Naomi. And it's only from seeing it that I'm actually remembering the match, so a bit of a shame on that front. But that IC title match is amazing. And that WWE title match was very good. It's just a little bit like you wouldn't go back and watch it again. It was fun, but still. But the rest could be easily missed. There's nothing much there. All right then. So that's our review. I have to actually give my review. I'll give it basically the question I'm asking myself here is, do I give it a watch it once because it's worth getting through a lot of the other stuff just to watch that IC title match? Yeah, I'll give it a watch it once. I think the rest it wasn't as if the show was bad. It was just a little bit forgettable. That's the only part of it there. So let's move on as I shuffle around in my seat here. Get a bit more comfortable. Bear with me. The Raw review. So Raw this week. I didn't catch it last week, so I missed that Sasha Banks championship winning match at the main event. And the reason I didn't watch it, if you missed last week, is because I was burnt out. There's no other way to go about it. Too many bad Raws in a row, and I had to tap out for a week and go and look at other things. And I'm better off for it, guys. I really am. Getting through the show was a lot more easier because I hadn't watched that much wrestling last week. So there we are. We're moving up to Hell in a Cell, and this show emanated from Oakland, home of the Oakland Raiders, and of course there was a few pops at the local sports teams, as you would expect. Sasha Banks kicks off the show, and considering I missed last week, I basically got all the highlights of that match as she came out anyway. She talks about Eddie Guerrero being her idol, Trish and Lita being her inspiration, and she says, I want the rematch to take place between me and Charlotte inside Hell in a Cell. Now, obviously, I talked about this a little bit earlier on. It is an interesting prospect having the women inside Hell in a Cell. And as I said before, it's not as if that, there isn't other matches on the show that are equally have no reason to be inside the cell. Seth Rollins, right? There's no reason for him to be inside the cell. I really feel like his blood feud is against Triple H, not Kevin Owens. That's how I feel. They have another match as well, Rusev and Reigns. That's not really blood feud territory, is it? That's not Head in the Cell worthy, but they're putting it in there anyway. So really, I can't really just point at the women and go, oh, no. The fact is that we haven't seen it before, so that instantly makes me a little bit interested. I will say that much. I would like it. And man, this is maybe me going a little bit brutal. I would like the women to bleed here on this match. Now, I know that blood is a big no-no, but you really want to sell the fact that this structure can be a career killer. which is also something that they failed to do on this show. If there's one thing I disliked about this show in general, in terms of building up to Hell in a Cell, is that they didn't sell the cell. And I'll get into that as we go along. So Charlotte comes down to address that challenge. And for some reason, Rusev comes down. And you know why? Because he wants a shot at the Women's Championship. For gender equality, why can't a man wrestle for the Women's Championship, huh? And if you don't like that, then you're sexist. Yeah. Yeah, I'll put that out there. Yeah. I mean, clearly that makes more sense than him coming out for no reason, of course. I am joking, of course, guys. Come on. And I only put that out there because there's one person that's going to take it seriously and be typing it and, it's bollocks. He blasts all women alive, and Lana claps like a fucking moron. She's like, yay, degrade my gender. Woohoo! Idiot. Charlotte takes offense to his words because, unlike Lana, she actually has a bit of a backbone, and accepts the challenge for inside Hell in a Cell. The Lana goes one step further from just being a obedient little lapdog by going, women should own... Hell in a Cell isn't for women. That place is only for men. So she's basically an obedient woman now. That's her whole thing. She's a pathetic character. There's no other way to get around it, Almost like Brie Bella back in the days where she was emotionally tortured by her sister, and they decided, you know what, you're not that bad. You only said that you wanted me to die in the womb, so I'll just be your friend again, and we'll start hanging out for no reason. So, yeah, there we are. So she gets chucked out of the ring. Rusev gives a look like, I'm going to have to slap one of these bitches back into order, put the women into their place, which seems to be what Rusev's all about. Talking of bitches, Roman Reigns comes down. Sorry, I couldn't keep a straight face there. Comes down to cut him off. I know a lot of fans are burned out of the women's equality stuff. At least this week. I mean, it has been worse than this week, but I understand what they're going with. That being said, this segment could have taken place after an opening match. There wasn't any hook for a match later on. I know there was going to be a match, but they didn't announce it at this segment, so it seemed a little bit meaningless, a little bit redundant in that fact, but still. Cesaro versus Kofi. The New Day are their usual entertaining selves, as you imagine they usually are. And whenever you send them out there on their own to do, without anyone else kind of muddling with their shit, then it's surefire gold. They're just entertaining. They are. There's no other way to go around it. Finally, we're seeing the New Day wrestle someone else than Gallows and Anderson. It's refreshing to see Kofi wrestle Cesaro because they just don't normally wrestle each other. You haven't seen a Kofi-Cesaro match probably for a very, very long time. And that's makes it immediately a little bit more interesting to someone like me who, unfortunately, watches the same people wrestle each other day in, day out. At least that's what it feels like. Sheamus has better things to do, however. He's sitting on his phone listening to the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. I can't blame him. It's a great podcast. And Kofi gets the win with a small package after Sheamus causes an inadvertent distraction. He didn't really intend to do it, so, you can give him that. A fun match, though. I did like it. I did like seeing these two guys wrestle each other that I don't normally do. And, yeah, cool. Bayley versus local talent. Very quick match here. Bayley fucked up a sunset flip before recovering into a Bayley to belly for the victory. And this just keeps Bayley ticking along into a Mania season. That's the time to push her further. Dana Brooke did attack her on the stage after the match. And again, that's a good rivalry just to keep her going for now because, as I said, WrestleMania is her season to go for the belt. It's too early at the moment to start making her flirt with championships and stuff like that. Because ultimately what you want is Bayley to be holding that title when WrestleMania 33 is all said and done. But there we are. Jericho is talking on his phone before R-Truth interrupts him for an obvious advert for the Payday bar. I've never had a Payday. I don't know what it's like. I haven't had many American chocolate bars because Cadbury's is the shit. And that's just the way it is. It's the way it is. In fact, I think the Americans get like different chocolate, don't they? Like I've heard from some people that, you know, because I've got some family that lives in Boston. When they come over here, they just want all the chocolate that's from over here because it feels like it tastes better. Like I think like when you get like cheap Easter egg chocolate from the really cheap stuff, I think that's what the Americans call their good chocolate. I don't know. Maybe you'd have to let us know, but still. Tony Nese and Drew Gulak versus Lince Dorado and Sin Cara. It is official that Sin Cara has joined the cruiserweight division. And why not? You know, he wasn't getting any airtime anyway. And talking just of Sin Cara, I have to go on record and say this. I know he had a match later on anyway. But I would put Neville in the division too. And I know a lot of people are going to call me out on my shit straight away because I know that I've gone on record and said that I don't want Adrian Neville to be put in the division because I don't want him to be labelled and then have to fight that stamp that gets put on him if he wants to go for bigger and better things down the line. But the fact is, at the moment, that the cruiserweight division as a whole is getting a big push. Neville isn't. Neville is barely even put on television nowadays. So, yeah, I think he needs to go in that division right now for the betterment of his career. Because I think if you keep him out of the division, I don't think WWE are going to put him anywhere. I think they've shown that they don't quite know how to book Neville. So I would put Neville in that division straight away. As soon as Brian Kendrick, whether or not he wins the championship or not, as soon as that rivalry is over, I would input Adrian Neville straight in there straight away. In the title contention, straight away. And I think that would be really good to see either Brian Kendrick against Neville or TJP against Neville. I think that would be really fun. So there we are. That being said about the Cruiserweight division, they need to stop having matches like these. Now, the match itself is fine, but it's meaningless. There's no reason for it to be there. It's not as if, okay, whichever team wins this will wrestle each other next week and they'll be the new number one contender. It's just random tag matches that they're putting in the ZWC. You're putting the spotlight on some of these guys, sure, but it really isn't getting anyone over. And that's the issue here. It's an okay match. It's too quick to be anything but okay. Dorado wins the match with a shooting star press, and there you are. Mick and Steph go into the ring. They say that No Mercy was incredible. Why they would do that when they're in competition with the other brand makes no sense to me. And then they do say Hell in a Cell will blow out of the water, but then why don't you just go on record and say, well, No Mercy was shit. Why would you ever watch SmackDown? Watch Raw. And it makes it really come across as if they're not really in a war with each other. You know, when they're doing advertisements for each other's pay-per-views on, you know, their own shows, it just it's dumb. It really kind of makes me disbelieve the whole brand warfare sort of thing that they're trying to get over. It kind of is counterintuitive, maybe counterproductive. The conversation here between Stephanie and Mick is so forced. It's almost like a collection of sound bites between Stephanie and Mick Foley doing his usual shtick. It's awful. Just as forced as his reality show. So there we are. Mick is happy to give the women their Hell in a Cell match, which again seems really fucking odd considering that his history with the match itself being as brutal as it is, and he's come out beforehand and made appearances talking about how dangerous the cell is and not to take it lightly. So how open he is instantly just going, yeah, let's just put them in the cell. Woohoo! Awesome. Mick Foley, out of anyone in the world, would be the character that might go, actually, no, we shouldn't do this. You know, the cell itself is a dangerous thing, and I'm reluctant to put you in it. And then Stephanie, in the chase for ratings and to beat her brother, goes, fuck it, I'm putting them in the cell for ratings. And Mick could be like, I'm worried about these girls and their health. And Steph's like, I don't care about their health. I care about ratings, right? That would make a lot more sense. But that's not what they did here. In fact, if you listen to JR's podcast over the course of this week, he spoke to someone, they had a conversation. They brought that up, and I completely agree with them. I have no idea why Mick, out of anyone else in the world, wouldn't defend and sell the cage. He almost made it seem as if it is some sort of reward to go into Hell in a Cell. Going into Hell in a Cell isn't a reward. Going into Hell in a Cell is almost a punishment for two people that can't seem to go forward in their careers without beating each other to a pulp inside of a steel confined cell. But they're treating it here as if it is some sort of reward, which is wrong. They shouldn't be doing that. So there we are. So Stephanie comes off cross and she's astounded. She's like, Mick, 3 Hell in a Cell matches on the pay-per-view? That's fantastic. Overlooking the fact that, you know, the very first Hell in a Cell themed event had 3 Hell in a Cell matches on it, so it's hardly the first time. And, you know, over the history of the pay-per-view in general, it's not as if they haven't had multiple Cell matches before. They've always had them. Kevin Owens comes out. He says that he doesn't want to compete in a Hell in a Cell match. He doesn't want to end up like a washed-up has-been, like Foley. Jericho's also there. He says he wants a private jet for himself and his new best friend. And then Foley ends up going onto the list of Jericho. He's now on there 3 times, is Foley. He's basically what Armbar is to Jericho's 1004 holds, but in this list, that's what Mick Foley is. So there we are. Stephanie says Jericho should show Foley some respect, which of course gave me a laugh because it's the same man who she cut the nuts off 2 weeks beforehand. So, you know, a little bit rich there, Steph. She also says that if Jericho beats Rollins tonight, the Hell in a Cell match will become a triple threat match. And I was thinking to myself, that's quite an interesting prospect right there. They could play off of the drama of Jericho maybe going for the title, kind of playing off a little bit here. And there could be a moment where Jericho has a chance to pin Reigns for the belt, tries to, and Owens throws him off. He's like, what the hell are you doing? You know, there's a lot of stuff you could do there, you know, along those lines, you know, with playing up for that champion. Sorry, I said Reigns, I meant Rollins, but you know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff they could play with there. There could be a lot of interesting moments in that match. Rollins is interviewed backstage. He says that he'll beat Jericho and make Steph's plans obsolete. And obviously that causes delete chants to ring around the stadium. I can't help but feel that was put in there by design, but there we are. And he plants the seeds in KO's mind by saying that Jericho will turn into a contender as soon as he gets a shot at that title, that all the friendships will go out of the window, shall we say. Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas versus Enzo and Cass. The Bo Dallas squash matches are done, so that's fun. Fun that they're over, not fun that we had them. Gallows and Anderson take out Enzo and Cass during their entrance promo. This is the sort of thing that Gallows and Anderson should have done since day one, but their antics and their, you know, playing doctor and all this sort of garbage and trying to be a comedy sideshow got in the way of them being this serious ass-kicking team, which is what they should have been. It's going to take a while to convince fans that this is what they are again now. I will say a jeans and T-shirt beatdown, yeah, that's the sort of more stuff that we need to see more often from Gallows and Anderson. Afterwards, Dallas and Axel still want a match and demand another team to come down. So Sami Zayn comes down, so does Neville, and then we get a tag team match of which they win almost instantly. So there we are. Afterwards, Bo walks out and his partner. Obviously, you can tell that the Bo and Axel match is something that will be happening down the line. Lana is pissed off with Charlotte. She says, stay away from my man. Yeah. Essentially. And she says that stay out of Rusev's way because Rusev will be challenging for the women's championship. Sorry guys. I actually want that to happen now. That would be funny. Rusev smash, Rusev pretty, you know, as he comes out to Alicia Fox's music instead of his Bulgarian brute stuff, you know. Why not? If they really want gender equality, why not? You know, if the women want to contend for the world championship, then Rusev should be allowed to challenge for the women's title. It's the way it is. Titus O'Hill versus R-Truth. Why am I talking about this? It's all bollocks. TJP speaks to a very angry Brian Kendrick. He brings up Kendrick's past and how they used to fix his N64 on road trips and play it there and stuff like that. And, you know, bring up some old retro stuff, you know. Kendrick nods and he's like, yeah, fair enough, but then goes to punch him. TJP lays him out. Kendrick is the heel that the Cruiserweight division needs, and they arguably will need one or two more as things go along. But he's certainly that guy to get things kicked off as a challenger for this belt. And I wouldn't be completely against him actually winning the title. So there we are. Braun Strowman versus a loaf of bread and fresh strawberry jam. I tell you, I could deal with that right now. That'd be quite nice. They picked two of the absolutely most bonker-looking local talents to get eaten here by Strowman. Strowman makes a nice and healthy sandwich and then proceeds to eat it. Just go ahead and make Gordon Ramsay his manager. I think that's the only way to go about it now. Strowman wants stronger competition. He says, I imagine next week he'll be fighting, dare I say, 3 local dudes. Oh! But yeah, he's going on this thing now that he wants stronger competition. But I expect that they... in fact, I actually do expect next week he will go against 3 guys just for what they're going with there. But still. Sasha and Roman versus Charlotte and Rusev. This is a good match in the middle of the show. The show itself started to lose itself a little bit there in the middle, and that second hour was quite pants. But Sasha taps out Charlotte with a bank statement once again, and after this match with some good wrestling, you can see that things were starting to ready themselves a little bit here. Josh Phillips makes the list. Jericho's list by attempting to cause tension between KO and Jericho, but they are best friends, and that's impossible, so don't even try. It's like me and Matt. You can't do it. Can't do it at all. That's the way it is. Paul Heyman. Now, this was interesting. Paul Heyman comes out, and Paul Heyman's always gold on it. You give him a mic in 10 minutes, and he'll give you just glorious, glorious shit. And he gives a rebuttal to Goldberg's comments on SportsCenter. That's right, Bill Goldberg. And he says that, well, to be honest, Paul Heyman, I know he could sell this match, and he does fantastic, but he could sell it. He could be out there selling cock-flavored lollipops and would still buy into it because he could sell it so well. It's the way it is. His promos are always awesome, but he sells that match so well that even the most jaded wrestling fan would be salivating at the prospect. And I like what they're doing here. They're billing it that the fact that Lesnar's conquered everyone, right? He's captured championships. He's stopped the Undertaker's undefeated streak. But there is one person that currently has a positive record against him, and it is Goldberg. Goldberg is 1-0 against the Beast Incarnate. And Lesnar wants to right that wrong. And we've spoken in length about Goldberg's return and trying to sell him against Lesnar. Regardless of all of that, I'm still excited about this match. It's interesting. I want to see it. Goldberg's return in no matter what capacity I'm interested in, and he's going to be around next week to answer this challenge. That response for Goldberg could be really fun, and I'm really, really excited to see how this pans out. I don't think Goldberg's going to be taking lots of suplexes onto his head, but I'm interested to see where this goes and if Goldberg is still in the shape. I imagine he would be, right? Knowing that this might have been coming up and getting himself in good shape. He could be in a lot better shape than people think. And I think anyone would love to be in whatever shape he's in at the age he's in. I'd love to be in that shape now, but that's just the way it is. TJP against Arya Daivari. Kendrick is on commentary. I love how he just kind of embraces and accepts just how desperate he's become. And that makes his actions as a heel believable, right? That he doesn't deny that he's desperate and he needs to win this match, and if that means he needs to burn a friendship with TJP, then that's exactly what he's going to do. I think that's fantastic, and I like this side of Kendrick and this narrative that they have with him. I really do enjoy it. This is an okay match, not anything special. Daivari gets his licks in here, but taps out to the knee bar towards the end. This leads into the main event. Jericho versus Seth Rollins. If Jericho wins, then he gets put into the main event match at Hell in a Cell for the championship. Kevin Owens comes in a small way through the match for a mini distraction to turn the match in Jericho's favor. This was actually a really cool main event. They actually got the fans really into this match. With the prospect of Jericho going into the match, there was something on the line here. And I like it. You guys know that I like it when there's match with consequences on the line. What I would have enjoyed more is Jericho actually winning this match and making it as a triple threat, as I said earlier on. He doesn't. Jericho, even though he could battle Father Time like no one else ever has, I mean, he's over 20 years in the business now, and he looks better than ever. I don't understand how that's possible. but that's just down to his dedication and his discipline in terms of working out and his diet and taking care of himself. Rollins is also one of those guys that if you can put into the main event, he's one of those guys that's going to perform in that main event no matter what, and he's going to give you a decent match. So really, it's a recipe for success, which makes me even more sad to hear that Jericho doesn't win. Rollins gets him hooked into a small package and pins him. Owens takes him out straight away. Rollins, that is, but Rollins manages to rally, takes out Jericho, and Owens scurries up the ramp, leaving his partner to face Rollins on his own and get laid out. So, yeah, I would have really have enjoyed that triple threat dynamic a lot more, especially as we've already seen Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins wrestle each other at the last event. And as I said, this whole title feud doesn't feel like Seth Rollins against Kevin Owens. It feels like Seth Rollins against the Authority. And if that's what you want to run with, fine, but it means that the title match is suffering a little bit for it. But, yeah, I would have much preferred to have seen that triple threat match go down and really play off that friendship there between Jericho and Owens and see how far it goes, and maybe you could even play into the finish that Jericho finally decides, you know what, I am going to help him retain this title. But you can't. You could have a few moments there where Jericho decides, well, Owens is outside the ring and Lawrence is laid out. I may as well pin him, and then something can happen there. It'll be very interesting. But they're not going with that. We're going to get a what could still be a good match, but I would have preferred Jericho to be involved. So there we are. That's the show. It's worth a watch, just like No Mercy. It's a much better Raw than all the ones that I've been ranting about leading up to Clash of Champions. In fact, that entire month, including Clash of Champions, was just a boring time. This episode had some stuff to it. That main event was pretty decent. You've got Heyman and building up to that Goldberg match. That definitely is happening, by the way. They wouldn't have Heyman out there talking about Goldberg's statements if this wasn't going down. There's some other good matches here. Yeah, I'm sure that some of the other rhetoric here can get a little bit annoying, like the Sasha Banks things at the beginning of the show. But overall, I think it's worth a watch. It's just a teeny bit better than a lot of those awful Raws that I gave Skip It to. It's by no means is it a Raw that you really want to be going out and searching for. It's just it's an all right show. It's better than maybe it's not, but maybe because I've taken the break, I'm looking at it more favorably. That could be an option as well. So that is it here for the show. There was plenty to talk about. My voice is all ripped up, so I need to go downstairs and in my house and get a drink straight away. Let me know how I did. Honestly, I'm interested because, as I said, I don't do a lot of solo podcasting. At very least when I did. So I did on the Lucha Underground reviews, and there would be 20, 30 minutes a piece. So nothing like the full, the whole deal here. So let me know how I did, and let me know if there's any ways that you think I could improve doing solo podcasting here for you guys. And then, because I'm always striving to get better as a podcaster and along those lines. And if you did enjoy anything in particular, let me know that as well. I'll be very happy to hear that. Apart from that, though, if you want to interact with us, the main way of doing so is our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Let's Talk Wrestling Podcast. You can also send us a tweet to our Twitter handle, which is @TalkWrestlePod. You can send us any audio questions or private emails to Let's Talk Wrestling Podcast @gmail.com. You can subscribe to the channel if you're new and join one of our almost 700 subscribers. You can also leave a comment in the comment section below. Oh my goodness, there's so many ways that you can get in contact with us here on this show. It just works. That's the way it is. All right, then, guys. I just realized that I've been saying the line, that's just the way it is a lot. Maybe that's what I do when I don't have Matt to interrupt me, and that's just my go-to line or something along those lines. Who knows? Maybe that's something I have to work on. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. We will catch you again next week with Matt back again as usual for all your fun. Episode 150 is coming up very soon. We'll have some news on maybe some ways that you can get involved in some things that we have planned for episode 150. But we do have some big dramatic changes in place for that show. So we hope you guys do enjoy it. Hope you guys have a great week. But until then, we'll catch you soon. Have a great time and goodbye.